Hello YouTube, this is your Toomey, and it has come to my attention that there has been recently a huge push against globalization in the media and through people saying that globalization is bad, and basically a demonization of anybody who wants to think, let's work together and have a global economy. Because that's costing jobs, don't you know? That's costing jobs, globalization. Is it? Look, I'm going to say straight up, globalization is good. And I am for globalization. With some regulation on that. Not full bore. But globalization has helped the world. And it will help the world in increasing more and more amounts. But it's really weird that all of a sudden globalization is considered a bad thing out of nowhere. I don't know where this has come from. So in this video I'm going to be talking about it and why I support globalization, and you should too. The first thing I want to show you guys is a part of a video from Crash Course Economics, especially concerning globalization. They've made two videos concerning globalization, and I'm just showing you a part of it. So watch this part and then go and watch those two videos from Crash Course Economics, and you're going to have a better understanding of what globalization really is and what it does and why it's really important that we have it. Alright, so here's the clip that I'd like to show you.
So globalization is the result of companies trying to outmaneuver their competitors. While you search for the cheapest place to buy shoes, companies search for the cheapest place to make those shoes. They find the cheapest sources of leather, dye, rubber, and of course labor. The end result is that labor-intensive products like shoes are often produced in countries with the lowest wages and the weakest regulations. This process creates winners and losers. The winners include corporations and their stockholders who earn more profit, but also consumers who get products at a cheaper price. The losers are high-wage workers who used to make those shoes. Their jobs moved overseas. But what about the low-wage foreign workers? Are they winning or losing? Well, a lot of workers are thrown into hazardous working conditions, but it's also true that many workers in developing countries are at least making more money. These jobs pay above average wages. People want these jobs. And although the pay would be unacceptable in developed countries, they're often the best alternative. And the multiplier effect means that more money is being spent on local businesses. So these jobs create jobs.
Alright, so did you get that? Well, maybe not, because it is a bit involved. A lot of parts are moving at the same time, and they have to work together almost perfectly. So here's what we have that's going on, from what I can understand. So here's the life of paid jobs. You start out with a need or a want, and then someone comes up with that need or want, and they come up with some way to address it in the form of a job. Now, these starting jobs are very expensive to implement and create firsthand. 99% perspiration after all, 1% inspiration. So it's very expensive, but it is also very exciting, because when you have a need or want, then that means that you might be taking part into the future of humanity and what is going to be part of everyday life. So it's very exciting. And also, I'll talk about later, also addresses things that are much more beneficial to individuals. And also at this very early stage, you really need a really highly educated workers, because they're not going to have understanding what you're trying to do. And so you're going to need workers that have been trained how to have critical thinking and know what to do when things arise. And so that's where things are going, and over the years, it'll eventually become to the next phase, which is optimized. And optimized means that people have understanding what the job is now, and there's a system, there's a factory line, there's parts, there's somewhat semi-automation going on. So you don't need workers that are highly educated. You don't need to pay people quite as much. and also because there is a little bit of automation and that people can put a lot of work into it without a lot of effort and create a lot of product without a lot of effort, then you can have people that are laymen, so less educated, working at these jobs. But that means also that you're being paid less. Also, during optimization, those jobs are going to be moved to locations in which those countries can specialize into those jobs specifically. So, for instance, if it's a job involving leather, then you're going to send the construction of that leather to a country that has a lot of leather resources, and so on and so forth. So you're going to be exporting all of that. And it's not in this clip that you see it, but you find out that by globalization, and we're using this specialization, we're actually making a lot more money by having this specialization than if we had all had the entire process of creating a product under one roof. So we're making a lot more money. Our GDP is through the roof. Sales are high. We're rich, baby. Woohoo! And then after that optimization and many years later, we go to automation, which is the death of the paid job. So maybe the job isn't needed anymore, or it's come to the point in which that workers aren't needed anymore because the machinery required for it is so common or it could be that the machinery is so encompassing that you don't need workers for it basically at all. So the cost of the product is near zero, which is good. So everybody has it available to them. So that's good. But if you're involved in it, you're not going to be paid a lot in it. So it's either you don't pay a machine or you don't pay sometimes in the form of slaves. So I'll be coming back to that really soon. So we're looking at this, at the life of paid jobs and how it works. And so we sort of relate each step to, well, first world, third world, and of course the death of the job itself. So in America, we are part of the first world. That means that we have a highly educated populace. We have a lot of time to be creative, that sort of thing. And in the second world, well, that's communism. That means that they're not being involved in this process of supply and demand. They have jobs and they're going to do those jobs, and if those jobs have any relevance or not to what people want or need, it's disconnected, so it's kind of bad. Second world is not where we want to go, into communism. It's just not. And then the third world, we have a situation in which there's a lot of laymen, and we're working to educate these people, yes, so that there's a more widely available sources of inspiration, and inspiration means more jobs. Now, that's exporting, but they're getting paid for doing the layman jobs for cheaper because that's the only option for them. So it's kind of what's necessary. And then you go to the job death, of course, which means that nobody has that job anymore. Not the first world, not the third world, nobody, because the machines are doing it for everybody. Now, there is an option to, instead of having machines do it, have slaves do it. That way it's cost effective for companies to do it. But having slaves is, of course, morally irresponsible. So that's one of the downfalls in this process that can happen. On the down end, you could have countries say, thanks for all this money, first world, and we're going to invest it into slave labor. Ooh, that's bad, because that doesn't contribute to our globalist needs. for everybody around the world to develop. So when we're having these trade deals that allow the specialization and the development of third world countries, we need to make sure that slavery isn't involved. That was my main objection to the TPP, which involved slavery. Of course, in the first world, we have problems of our own with elitism, in which people are taking all the money that's gained from this system of specialization and getting more money for less cost and keeping it for themselves. And that's a problem that I'm going to address later. But let's just think about this. Right now, the narrative is globalization is bad because it's taking away our jobs. But the truth is that the job isn't going to stay because it's not part of the life of the paid jobs. It's just simply not what happens. A job doesn't stay well paid forever. That's just human progress, human ingenuity. If it's a job that has a need or a want, then we're going to find a way to streamline it and make it even more available to more and more people, which is a good thing. Let's just take a moment and agree on that. If there is a huge need or want, it's a good thing if everybody has it available to them and for cheap cost. And that is impossible to do when you have a high construction cost for that product. It's impossible. Those two things can't happen at the same time. You can either have a civilization that has a lot of product available to people, or you can have a civilization that has a lot of jobs that are maybe unnecessary anymore, aka Second World or communism. So we have to decide what kind of jobs we want. Do we want these irrelevant jobs? Because they're not going back. This is a one-way trip. Those jobs came and went. They're not coming back. And that's a good thing. Again, we're making bucket loads of money from this system. So let me talk about why we don't want those jobs back. And instead, we want to invest in jobs of the future. So what we are looking at now is Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and I found that it conveniently fits the type of jobs that have been available throughout history and through the progress of humankind. So initially we had a lot of farmers, and then that's been automated and machinized, and now we're going up to the next thing, which is security and safety. And then up to love and belonging, esteem and self-actualization, and so on and so forth. Here's the thing. We do not want these low safety and physiological jobs. Those jobs we really, really, really want to be free. And remember, a free job isn't a paid job. I mean, a free product cannot allow a paid job. Okay, the more you pay people for it, the more the product is going to cost. That's simple math. So we do not want people to be paid for these low jobs if we can. What we want to happen is for those jobs to get automated to the point that they're free. Can we agree on that? We shouldn't be forcing people to pay for food, water, and sleep and homeostasis and breathing if we can help it. It's just morally responsible for us not to do that. Gaining resources and attributing to that is that which would be safety of resources. Is that a job that we want to be expensive because if we want that to be free, then of course we can't have a paid job for that. It's simply not there. The math is not there. I am sorry. that those jobs don't exist if you were very dedicated to them. But it is also very important that that job no longer exists, because we're talking about the progress of human civilization here. And just a little note on Maslow's hierarchy of needs: if we're invested in the bottom tiers, then we can never fully benefit from our investment in the upper tiers. And the upper tiers is what you want, baby. Let me tell you, in the upper tiers, you not only get to be happy, but you can have that happiness for longer, and you attribute it to happiness in levels that are the best. Contrary to the happiness from fulfilling lower needs, which you get happy for maybe an hour or two, but then the chemicals wear off and it goes away. We want the higher stuff, and we want to have the ability to enjoy the benefits of the higher stuff. And again, that's not possible when we have to pay for the lower stuff and worry about the lower stuff. It's just what we need to happen for humanity to progress. Now, at this point, you might be saying, but Toomey, I need a job. I need a job. I'm sorry I'm not educated or anything like that. I'm desperate. I am a layman. What can I do? How is this possible? Someone needs to take the blame, and globalization is to blame. No, it's not. Because like I said, we're making bucket loads of money from globalization, and that globalization is very important. And with this extra money, you should be able to get an education to meet new jobs. There are jobs in the first world countries, but the thing is, with human progress, those jobs are going to require more and more and more education. And a first world country should meet that need because it has the money to provide that education. Education isn't cheap, but it should have the money for it. But where did all that money go? So we allowed globalization to happen. We sent the money and the jobs down the pipeline so that we could have more money for these top tier things. And we are getting a lot of money for these top tier things to happen and for education to happen. But what happened to it? Well, it wasn't globalization. This one is a bit more, immoral and complicated. So here we are looking at how much money is in offshore accounts. That's right, just money laying around for the top. Like I said, we're talking about elitism here, both in first world and second world countries. There was an agreement when we participated in globalization that this extra money would be shared by all global citizens, but it's just not happening. We send these jobs down the pipeline with the money to support those jobs down the pipeline, and we get money back up from innovation and education and more products, and it's a good thing, and we're getting all that money. But the problem is, people are keeping it for themselves, and they're storing it offshore. I'm sorry, but globalization isn't to blame. We got to blame individuals here, and this is a situation of we can versus we should. We can get those jobs back, yes, from globalization. We can say, okay, 100% tariffs on everything. No more globalization. we're cutting off the understanding of sending jobs and money down the pipeline because it's not working. This system isn't working, even though it should, because the math works out that way. But unfortunately, people are not allowing it to happen. We can shut down globalization, and we might get jobs back. But the thing is, like I said earlier, if we get those jobs back, then that means we're cutting off the possibility for our needs to be free. We're cutting those off completely because those are old jobs that we don't want. Nobody wants them. Do you really want to work in a coal mine? That's a question. Would you rather work in a job that's really fulfilling and top tier on Maslow's hierarchy of needs, or would you want to work in a job that's low tier and is not fulfilling at all? That is the question that we have. We can get those low tier jobs back. Sure, we can pass a law, illegalize global trade, make that happen. But should we? And if we allow that to happen, then it can happen. But when we get the jobs back and we still want our things that we have now, we can have those jobs which are worthless, and the people who work in them will be treated as worthless so that they're at the price that they are worth, because automation and things. It is an option to get those jobs back. But if we do go down that road of wanting to invest in low-tier jobs instead of high-tier jobs, the cheap jobs, which third world countries can't afford low-tier jobs because low-tier jobs are by definition cheap, and third world countries can afford them. And we do that, then we're basically binding ourselves to poverty. That's what we're doing. So, do we want that to happen? We can, but should we? Should we allow that to happen? Or should we invest in high-tier jobs because, thank the Lord, we're a first world country and we have the money coming in to do it? But the problem is greed. It's greed. Be straight. $21 trillion. All that money that's coming in that's supposed to be invested in first and high-tier jobs is going to individuals, and it's not going back into the jobs market. If we want those high-tier jobs, if you want jobs, you have to take it out of the hands of the people that are holding them. That's the only way. We need to tax them, since they're not willingly letting it go for immoral reasons. And that's right, I'm saying it straight up, it's immoral. So, $21 trillion, the proof is right there, people. We need it. So where are the jobs? It's right there. Right there. $21 trillion worth of jobs. So if we tax... the sad thing is... Let me tell you this. The sad thing is $21 trillion worth of jobs... $21 trillion worth of money that's just lying around not going to anything. If the people who had that money decided, you know what, let's invest it in a global civilization, let's invest it in humanity, we could have world peace. We could solve basically all the world's problems within a month. Never again would people starve. Never again would there be poverty within a month. And this is devastating to me. It's devastating. I mean, look at this. Again, we're working with $21 trillion of money that's being eaten by moths. $21 trillion. $21 trillion, we could solve everything. For $3 trillion, we could solve world hunger for 100 years. For $3 trillion. So, 1/7 of that money that's just lying around. World hunger, gone. Globalization isn't the problem, people. It's just not. So what are we going to do with the rest of that money? How about end world poverty? For like forever. How much would it take to end world poverty? Well, let's see. In this article, it talked about the end of world poverty. It would cost $175 billion to end world poverty. So we could end world poverty for 50 years for like $6 trillion, I think that would be, if I remember right. For 50 years, no more poverty, no more world hunger. We still have money. We still have money after that. No more hunger, no more poverty, like extreme poverty. We have education, housing, all those low tier needs taken care of just from money that's lying around. So, and we still have money. So let's go and think about the long term. Invest in the future of the human race. Human race. We're talking about really high tier stuff now. And let's invest in NASA or a global space exploration administration. It only costs $18 billion a year for NASA's budget. And we have 21 trillion. Keep in mind that there's 999 billion and 1 trillion. And it only requires 18 billion to hire NASA for a year. 18. 999, 18. We can do this. It's there. But globalization isn't the problem. It's a system that we're getting lots of money for, and money for high-tier jobs. Jobs that are fulfilling. Jobs that could advance human civilization. But there's a problem, and it's not globalization, it's people and greed. That's your problem right there, 100%. This has been your Toomey. And that's why I support globalization. Peace.